Hi, everybody. Here is one of the most interesting subjects that we would converse about, culture. It is such a challenging word for a number of people to understand. Even organizations have a hard time not only understanding, but changing one's culture. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to talk a bit about what culture is, how it's created, how it's sustained, how it impacts the organization. So first, the best definition ever to come about with culture is the way we do things around here. It's the way we act, behave. And so how is culture created? It's created in a number of ways. First, formally, through some kind of rules, regulations, processes. It's something that's codified or written down that says that people associated with this organization, people associated with this group, people associated with this community, whatever it may be, this is how they're going to act. That's how culture starts. That's the more formal. But then you have the informal aspects of culture. And what do we mean by the informal? With informal, it's almost like the slang that we use. It's like the nicknames that we give people. Everybody has a formal name. Mine's David. And then you have the informal name, which would be Dean. And that's a great example of the culture. The people who know me call me Dean. If people don't know me, they may call me David. And so there's a great example of culture. Also going farther, there's people who have even nicknames that are within a family. The Queen of England, for instance, it was hard when she was young. Her name was Elizabeth, still is, of course. But some people would call her Lilibet because they couldn't say Elizabeth, so it would come out as Lilibet. So her close family still to this day call her Lilibet. There's a good example of the culture. It's the way they do things in that family. So that's the formal aspect of culture, and that's the informal aspect of it. But here's where culture really comes in to our world, is that when we grow up, even as an adult, when we go into an organization, they may give you an employee handbook or manual and say, read this is the way we do things here. But then you may find out they really don't do things there. They actually have a different set of what we would call unwritten rules that you almost have to learn. And you could say things like, one that comes to mind so much is when you go into an organization and you want to call somebody by their first name. But yet, in that organization, they call people by doctor or nurse because they use their more professional terms within that environment. That's the culture that often is sometimes not even in an employee handbook, but you have to learn about it simply by working there. How is culture created? It's created first and foremost by leaders and founders. So if you found a company, you're the one that's going to create this types of culture. Same with your managers. You're going to create the way that people have to act, react, and behave. Because if they don't follow that, they're not going to be successful. And therein lies the importance of culture. When you start a new organization, you really have to understand the culture of that organization in order for you, the word we use is fit in. Not a word I like, but a word that we use. One final comment about culture. As you can tell, it tells people how to behave, even think. So it can be terribly damaging to an organization that's trying to change, but they have this culture that says you must do it that way. That's one reason why we often look at culture and say it can be instinctively binding and it inhibits creativity. So you certainly have to have a culture that's much more fluid and welcome to outside influences. Hope that gives you a good primer on culture, but certainly throughout the week and throughout the class we'll talk more about this subject as well. Everybody, make today a great one.